Okay, okay. Thank you very much for being that brave and sitting through the entire day and the lightning talks. I really appreciated that you are spending your Sunday evening with us. My name is Stefan Schneider. I'm with Sun. I work with the group who is taking care for our software vendors. We are 180 engineers worldwide. We have 30 engineers who work exclusively with open source communities. As I told you, I'm with Sun. It's big fun being here. Sun is a kind of the biggest and oldest startup probably in the IT industry. Sun means Stanford University Network. We work in fairly chaotic virtual teams. I have Patrick Finch here. He is stand-up. He is basically from the Indiana project, and I took the charge in giving the presentation. And before I forgot, this is a talk about our Project Indiana, which is based as on a live CD. I brought two of them with me, two previews too, and a real neat small book about using Open Solaris. I never thought before I got two of them. I kept one on my own. So whoever is interested in, just pick it up. So time to speed up. Okay. Solaris is a fairly mature operating system. Our Sun has a fairly long tradition for more than 20 years in working in a kind of an open environment with sharing. This happened in the 80s and 90s through licensing things, through standardization. It changed in the late 90s through things like Java community, and nowadays our collaboration happens through completely different means like open source development. Our Solaris operating system is a real data center carrier-grade operating system which allows you to do things like exploiting resources from servers up to 144 CPUs. Solaris has features in which allow you to take such a server, keep all the applications running, and basically swap all CPUs, all memory, all disk, and all network cards step by step, including power supplies. The only thing you can't switch while the operating system is working is the passive backplane. But if you do it right and if you don't screw it up, you can basically change the entire hardware. This is a kind of a carrier-grade data center operating system which has a lot of value in, and folks put lots of energy into it over quite a period. Fact is, we realized the kind of some 3-4 years ago, we have to do something different in order to grow the community and to grow the adoption. And we have to do something different in order to be able to expand in new markets like embedded systems, education, government. So what Sun did at this time was a kind of a fairly brave move. We basically opened Solaris up with the brand name Open Solaris. This was 2.5 years ago. It's under a CDDL license. This is an OSI approved software license which allows you to do pretty much what you want to do with our sources. And what was not that visible to the world was we have been opening our development process, and this is quite a challenge because around 1,000 people have to change the way how they work, how they collaborate, and how they build software. This was quite painful for Sun, and but at the end of the day it was a pretty good exercise in trying to become more transparent, and we're still working on it in order to become even more transparent because everyone is benefiting from it. So this initiative is 2.5 years old. We saw some pretty good adoption in the last 2.5 years. Some people some people created distros like Shillix, and we saw quite a number of contributions, especially in the more front-end stuff. Hello? Oops. The major difference between the typical Linux approach is that it's important for us that we have an open source track where everyone can have a look at the software modified, and that we have a commercial enterprise track called Solaris, because there's a fairly large market out there of people who rely on this kind of enterprise Solaris. And our vision of the future is that we have a kind of a fairly quickly evolving ecosystem with all kinds of application still being based on binary compatible operating system cores, no matter if they come in a commercial operating system like Solaris for enterprise customers, or if it comes in a fast track, quickly evolving Open Solaris open source environment. Pity is, as I already told you, our Solaris is really a kind of a data center-like operating system, and we realized in the last 2.5 years that many potential developers like you here coming from universities or working on open source projects had problem in adopting our technology because we haven't been really strong on the desktop. We didn't make it exceptionally easy for people to build their stuff. And this didn't matter for corporate developers in the past because they had the time to invest in trainings, and we realized we had to do something, and this was why Project Indiana has been kicked off. The key idea of Indiana is really to make this big fat 4.7 gigabyte DVD with Solaris much lighter, simpler, and create a simple nucleus, a core, which is as small as possible, and enable an environment where you have integrable components, where you don't have to ship all the 4, 6, 7 gigabyte at a time when you install your operating system, but make it a kind of smaller, more agile, and easier and faster to download and simpler to install. We are planning to do this by having a small core operating system which fits on a normal CD with 600 megabytes. So if you're lucky, you can download this thing within 20 minutes at home. If you would do this with Solaris Developer Express coming on a DVD, it's probably a long evening with 4 or 5 hours. In order to make it a fully usable operating system, we are changing our package installation technology away from our old System 5 Release 4 packaging technology, which served us well over almost 15 years. But you have to keep in mind, when we started using it, we had a tenth of the projects, a tenth of the packages we have today, and we simply couldn't imagine on how many patches we will have to issue on top of these packages. So our Project Indiana is using a packaging system called IPS, which is network-based. You put your packages on public repository and just download with a few commands the things you need to build your own environment. The second thing we learned is that corporate developers had no problems with our operating system, but people who are developers for other platforms like Linux, Windows are typically just a kind of casual administrators for Solaris, and they had problems in getting our operating system up and running. So we invested in new installation technology, which makes things really straightforward to install, and we were putting the GNU tools in the default search path, which should make life easier for people who are coming from university, from Linux background, and allow them to get a user experience as they know it from Linux. If you're a traditional enterprise customer, don't panic. You can operate Open Solaris as well with standard search paths, and your look and feel will be as you had it before. These two key features are hopefully making Open Solaris available to a much larger audience than before, because we made it significantly easier and faster to download it and operate it. But still, we don't want to lose the old virtues and the features which we introduced with our Open Solaris and Solaris 10, because we want to be able to use our advanced file system, ZFS, the SETA file system, to do all kinds of cool gadgets, like, for example, rolling back an upgrade which went south and doesn't do you any good, or having a real good integration of the AMP stack, which was documented lately by our acquisition, or our intended acquisition of MySQL. And last but not least, we worry about binary compatibility. We want to stay binary compatible, and we have tools like dtrace, which help you analyzing complex software stacks at full runtime, or our virtualization technologies like zones and our new modern system management facilities. So this kind of new packaging of Solaris is basically the second stage of our Open Solaris move. 2.5 years ago, we released basically our sources more or less as is to the world, with Project Indiana, we will soon have an installation CD which will make your life much easier, and this is a perfect start for someone who wants to build software for this open source operating system. Hopefully soon, as I learned from the guys from Indiana, we'll have a real shipping CD. As of today, we have a preview too, which was already fairly good. And this thing will consist out of a single CD image, which you can use as a live CD to figure out how OpenSolaris is working, and you can use it to install the real operating system. And it will consist of a kernel of the kernel, system libraries, and some system utilities. This is a kind of a bare bones environment, which is just your kind of launch pad to do the real thing. The network-based package management system is supposed to help you compose your installation as you want to do it, and get all the packages, the open source packages or your own packages from the web as you need them. A real step forward is making the setup file system the default file system for root. This is something fairly brave, since we had UFS for forever as our root file system. And if you don't want to screw something up as an operating system vendor, then it's having a corrupt root file system. This setup file system is completely new. It has integrated volume managers, snapshot capabilities, and a real huge scalability, data integrity from end to end. And this is a kind of a foundation which is there to last for the next 10, 15 years. The message here is, if you have been hesitant in writing software or using the OpenSolaris technology, this is a kind of now the point where we have a complete new infrastructure for you with ZFS as a boot file system, GNU tools in the standard search path, and a brand new package, network packaging system, which is there as well to last for the next 5 to 10 years. And this is a kind now the second wave where it's getting hopefully significantly easier to deploy your application, or as we are foreseeing it, to basically build your own distro. Within the end of this year, we'll have internet-based repositories with standard software from Sun. This is stuff we tested in a very intensive way, where we know everything is perfectly coordinated. We have repositories from opensolaris.org, where we have contributions from other community members, where we can't warrant the quality. And we are hoping to see that people put their own software repositories out and use all these sources to build their own individual mix of distros, to build appliances, NAS filers, whatever you can imagine, to build their own custom distributions. And therefore, we really consider this being kind of a foundation which will allow people in the future really to compile and build their own software recipes and their own configurations, which are hopefully much leaner and faster and easier to maintain, like this big loaded OpenSolaris, which we have today. As I already stated, Project Indiana is a kind of happening in the public. You can get the developer preview from the URL up here. Just download the ISO image, burn your CD, boot it up, play around with it. The packaging is now working. You can install the first packages from the internet, and we hope to do significant improvement in the next 2 to 3 months before we have the final release. Let us know how you like it. Join our mailing lists. File bugs if you see that stuff isn't working. Write some code to it, and simply join our community and the project, because we're really welcoming your participation. This already leads to the end. I have 1 minute to go. 2 things I want you to take home with you. OpenSolaris just got a major revamp in usability. Watch what we are doing with Project Indiana. In several months, we're really releasing a complete new environment which will make it much easier for you to use our software and gives you the chance to do stuff for university, but as well grow into mission-critical stuff like our deployments for telco customers finance, because there the traditional Solaris is very popular. The second thing I want you to take home with you is Sun is not just a California-based computer company. Sun has a strong engineering presence in Europe. We have 100 colleagues working in our Hamburg office on OpenOffice. We just gained 22 colleagues in Stuttgart working on VirtualBox. We have quite some guys, I think 200 to 300 working on NetBeans in Prague, and 24 of colleagues in Regensburg working on the Grid engine, which is open source as well. I think I forgot the OpenJDK colleagues in St. Petersburg. They didn't fit anymore on the map. And most likely we'll be able to welcome colleagues from MySQL in Sweden soon. Our guys, open source engineering, is in the UK, Amersfoort, Netherlands, and in Heidelberg. So send me an email or talk to us at our booth, and thank you for your attention and have a safe trip back home.